So, welcome everybody. This is the Armed Society podcast. I'm going to start recording so I can release this on podcast as well. And that didn't work, so I got to go over here and manually hit that button. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. This is the Armed Society podcast. This is an offshoot of what I do on a regular basis. This is just where I get to have fun on a weekly basis. I kind of turn this over to a different person every week. This week, Charlie is driving the bus. Charlie Cook, good friend. He is the guy behind Riding Shotgun with Charlie. And what I do is I invite a different person in every week. They bring two people with them, and they bring a topic, and I let them run the bus. And I just throw snarky comments and make sure the tech all works good. So, Charlie, your show, your what you get to say. You get to drive the bus tonight. Where are we going?
Oh, right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. It is always fun to be on. It's great to see everyone. It's great to have everyone here. It's great to see our guests. Our guests tonight are, besides Paul and myself, our guests are Derek LeBlanc from the S.A.F.E Foundation. And Derek, good evening. Great to see you. Tell everyone about you and your stuff real quick before we get to the stories.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. So I'm Derek with the S.A.F E Foundation. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit based in Oregon, and we teach firearm safety and accident prevention to kids.
Very cool, man. You're doing a lot of the Lord's work out there, teaching the next generation.
Yeah,
and speaking of teaching the next generation, this guy teaches everybody. He teaches everybody everything. It is Chris Dover, the Clover Tack, the tactical leprechaun. Is he there?
Maybe. Do I have audio now?
Yes, you have audio.
Awesome.
We can hear you. We can see you. And tell us about yourself, Chris, how everyone can find you, all that sort of cool stuff.
Easiest way is clovertack.com, because I do all types of social media and content production on multiple platforms. So whatever your poison is, you can go over there to clovertack.com. There's a little carousel with all types of platforms listed, and click on the one you want to follow on. Most of the platforms, it's just CloverTack, or you can Google CloverTack most likely and pick that up. But yeah, we do anything and everything firearm related. Second Amendment all the way down to shilling for gun companies. Just kind of depends on what needs to be done at the time.
Very cool. We don't call it shilling. We call it, supporting and encouraging. But you got to do what you got to do, right? All right. Well, the reason I wanted to have Chris here is because there is a lot of stuff that's going on in Texas that is exciting, and you've been streaming 40 hours worth of hearings down in Texas about the constitutional carry.
Maybe something like that. Yeah, we picked up, I guess, when it was passed in the House. We were live streaming, because here's the thing with legislation. People see the headline, right? AmmoLand will put it out, or T-Tag, or whatever it might be. Even Second Amendment Foundation and other 2A organizations, they'll put out a lot of times, hey, so-and-so passed, right? But they don't get into all of the weeds and the nastiness and the government procedure and all of that stuff that got it to the point where it passes in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. And so people just assume that they introduce a bill, and Derek can speak to this because he's been in the state house a lot on different bills and different things, I'm sure. But, people are under this idea that they submit a bill and they just throw it on the floor and vote for it. Oh, and it's no big deal. And so one thing that throughout this process is people see that it's a long, tedious process. One of those things is you never know when that bill is going to hit the House floor or the Senate floor, right? And so because of that, you have to go live and potentially stay live for 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 hours before that bill actually gets to the floor, and then you start having the debate on that bill. So that's been one thing that's been really cool is it's been an eye-opener, I think, and an education process for how for civics, which is no longer taught in schools, unfortunately, but how the government actually works. And I call it how the gummy bears are made. A lot of people say how the sausage is made, which is also a pretty nasty process. But if you know how gummy bears are made, it's pretty nasty. Government procedure is the same way. But when we get things like, hopefully we're going to get constitutional carry here in Texas, well, that's the end product. That is the gummy bears. And who doesn't like a delicious gummy bear?
That is a great point. That is a great point. So the process, it had to go through the House, and then it went through the Senate. And the governor said that he was going to sign this. So
correct.
What's the process after that? Like, it's been through both of these. How long does it take to get to the governor's desk before he can sign it?
That's a good question, and I've had a lot of questions on that. I actually had a post today. People are impatient. Go figure, right? In a world where we got Amazon next day, right, or Amazon drone delivery in hours, people are impatient. Go figure. But again, it goes back into the process and the procedure. Right now, or at least last time I checked, because I could be wrong on this. It's been a while, a few hours. But last time I checked, the Senate and the House, even though they have the final vote, right, they have not certified those final votes. So you've got to understand, before the governor can even sign off on it, it has to be certified, right? It has the vote. They have to say, yes, the vote was taken. We've all signed off on it. And now it's the governor's turn to make it, sign it and put it into law. So hopefully that happens over the next couple days. I'm hoping. What people lose sight of is that our legislators have more than just 2A issues that they're dealing with. They have a whole swath of things in running states and running the federal government and everything else that they have to deal with. So we've got to be a little bit patient. Sometimes the administration of things, it can take a few days. It can take some time. Once that happens, yes, the clock will start. The governor will have 10 days. And as you alluded to, Governor Abbott here has already said it's a no-brainer. He's wanted it on his desk. He's going to sign it. Not a big deal. But the governor will have 10 days to take basically one of three actions will happen. Either he can sign it within 10 days, he can veto it within 10 days, or it can become law without signature. Can be enacted without his signature after 10 days. So that's the course of action. But I think it's a no-brainer that he's going to sign it. Along with, by the way, sorry, Charlie, but along with, by the way, the 2A sanctuary bill, which is on its way, and also the suppressor freedom bill, which is on its way. So good session.
Oh my God. That is very cool. The votes, they didn't use Dominion machines, did they?
No, but sure. It's interesting, the voting process. If you're watching live through all that, and not just on the constitutional carry, but as you're waiting on it and you're hearing votes on other things, they know the votes before they call the roll, right? Yeah. They're like, call the roll, and before they even get through reading the roll, all the votes are cast. It's like everybody knows how they're going to vote. Now, we were straight party lines in the Senate. It was straight party lines pretty much the entire process. However, in the House, we did have some Democrat flops, 6, 7, something like that. Democrats to come over to the Republican side. So there was some bipartisan play in the House, which is good to see.
Before we go any further, I want to just jump in here quick. I want to remind everybody, and DJ Play Nice has already put several comments in that I've got up on the screen. Thank you for commenting, DJ. Gerald has got a comment coming in from Facebook. If you're watching, you want to jump in on the conversation, just comment on the live video. We'll get your comments up. We'll discuss them on the air. And to thank you, everybody that is watching. One thing I want to bring up is that we are, and Texas is evidence of this, we've got issues in fighting for our Second Amendment rights, but my honest opinion is nationwide, we're winning. And that's evidenced by Texas. Texas is the 21st state and the 5th state this year that has gone constitutional carry. The 4th state this year that has become a Second Amendment sanctuary state. We are winning, and we're going to continue winning. And I the people that are saying, oh, woe is us, and it's time to, take up arms. No, it's not. Now is the time for you to get on the phone to your senators. There's a lot of things to do. We are winning. You just need to open up the eyes. I've had a stroke. I've got brain problems, and I can see it.
One of the things that
we need to celebrate the victories when we get them, right? And that's a huge thing that's happening in Texas. Obviously, it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum here in Oregon. Is we actually had a Senate Bill 554, which is probably one of the worst bills I've seen ever come out of Oregon, and it passed. It passed both the House and the Senate. And it's actually on the governor's desk right now, awaiting her signature. And this one, it requires mandatory storage. There's a $500 fee for not properly storing your firearm, which is a safety expert. I like storage, but I don't want a mandate. That's basically a tax. And on top of that, it raises our CHL prices to $100, and so it basically prices lower socioeconomics out of the carry game, and plus it makes public schools and other municipalities off limits to carrying a gun concealed. So it really makes all of us very vulnerable here in Oregon. And so, hats off to Texas. So I think we should, wherever we can, support the ones that are winning and hopefully figure out a way to win in other states,
Well, we've got to, Derek, if I may permit it, I mean, we've got to, first of all, appreciate that as a Texan, but we've also got to acknowledge folks like you, because one of the things, I've gotten comments from Californians, I've gotten comments from New Jerseyans, however you want to, as this has went on with constitutional carry, going, hey, great, wished it was that way here. And then somebody comments to them, well, you just need to move. And it's like, you know what? We've got some great people that are fighting some good fights in some really horrible places. Mm-hmm. That's commendable. So thank you for that. And so not only are you creating a potential where you can change things where you're at, but you're also keeping it from spreading, which is sometimes and often even more important, right, than flipping it 180. So kudos to you and those other people that are fighting the fight behind enemy lines. It's easy to do what I'm doing in Texas, right? Yep. I appreciate the love I've gotten for covering constitutional carry and everything this session, but my job's easy here. Yours is not.
And it comes down to getting involved. I mean, we have to get off the couch and take part. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Paul. But that's when when I talk to my local senator here, he flat out would not listen to the data. He would not. He has pictures of him with moms and men action, so he is a paid shill for the other side. And so it comes down to, I told him I'm going to run for his seat, and he's up for re-election next year, and so that's going to be my next step. Is I'm going to help protect my state by getting involved. And I'm still trying to figure out the process, but that's where I'm going next. I encourage others from around the country, if you're watching this, understand how the process works and find out how you can sacrifice to truly move that needle forward. And it comes that you have to get involved. We can no longer just think that somebody else is going to do the work for us. We have to pick up that football and move it forward.
Yep.
And Derek, once you get set up, let me know, and I will personally contribute to your campaign fund, man, because I've encouraged that for forever. If you can't get your politicians to work with you, then do it yourself. And you are one of the many people who are stepping up and doing that. And dude, I'll kick you $100 as soon as you're set up.
Thank you, sir.
I want to, and that I want to tee off on a long time ago when I very first started podcasting. I had this tiny itty little bit of podcast called the Politics and Guns Podcast before it became Polite Society, and I think I had a couple hundred listeners. One of them was in New Jersey, and I was emailing back and forth with this guy about New Jersey politics, and I said to him at one point, at what point, dude, do you think about moving? And the guy said to me, look, I was an Army Ranger, and they taught us a lot of the things in the Army, but one of the things when I went to Ranger School they never taught us was retreating. And I thought that was so friggin' cool. And so I quit encouraging people to move after that. Let's take it to them in states like New Jersey, New York, California, Oregon. That's I love the fighting spirit. Absolutely.
You know, to go back to something you brought up, Paul, is that we're winning. I don't know if you guys use this. I use this in the classes that I teach, but I have some slides that I take right from the website called, I think it's called Radical Gun Nuttery, or maybe just Gun Nuttery. And if you Google, you'll find it. They have a right to carry advancement from 1986, and they update it. I actually looked at it yesterday to see if they added Texas to 2021. But you can see from 1993 to 1995, you could see that when the original assault weapon ban came out, that the states went from shall issue or not having carry permits to, they went from may issue and not carry permits to shall issue permits. And the number really swings in the 3 years from 1993 to 1995. And then Vermont sits there for the longest time, from 1986 until 2000, when Texas became a constitutional carry state. And then, in 2003, Arizona becomes. And then, slowly we have a state here, a state there, 2 states this year. And like you said, we had 5 states this year so far, and we're only half done. So when it does seem to be that when the anti-gun wackos come out and say, hey, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have this, we all found out last year, people go out and they buy guns and they want to get armed and they want to be able to protect themselves because they know that the police are not going to be everywhere. Even though, I always say this, even though the police cars say to serve and protect, it's really to clean up and write a report.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gerald.
And DJ Play Nice says, "Here you go, Charlie," and then he puts up the link, gunnottery.com/rtc.php.
This is why DJ Play Nice plays nice.
All right, let's see.
All right.
One more I want to get. Gerald says, how can Oregon justify doubling the fees? Makes it hard for poor people to protect themselves. And Gerald, that's the people that are doing this are saying this is the party that's for the poor people, for the disadvantaged people. And this is the same party that's making it more difficult for the disadvantaged to defend themselves.
And so one thing about Gerald, so they're increasing the fees with lowering the availability of me being able to carry more buildings. So I'm not getting more for my money. I'm getting actually less service. And what it's going to do is you're going to put people where they're going to say, you know what? If there's a chance I'm going to be a criminal, I'm not going to get your permit. And I mean, that's what they're basically doing to, law-abiding citizens here in Oregon. And they're not listening to their constituents. Gerald, you're spot on.
In the late 90s, when Mitt Romney was the governor of Massachusetts, I wasn't a gun guy and it wasn't anything I was interested in. But our license to carry, when I first got my license to carry, and it wasn't to carry, I still had restrictions on it, but it allowed me to have large capacity and non-large capacity rifle shotguns and handguns. It was a whopping $25. Mm-hmm. And by the time I renewed 4 years later, it went up to $100 because that's when a tax wasn't a tax. It was a fee and not a tax. So the fee went from $25 to up to $100. And then the pro gun groups out here said, hey, listen, you're quadrupling the price of our permit, but you're not quadrupling the price of how long we can have a permit. And then they changed it from 4 years to 6 years. So it's one of those sorts of things where they're not calling it a tax increase, but it is a tax increase because the fee for something goes higher.
Well, full confiscation and registration is as sexy, so they got to kind of hide some of their cards.
Mm. Oh, totally.
And speaking of behind enemy lines, John Petrolina says someone needs to stay and keep these bad policies from coming across the country and to turn out the lights.
This is what I love about John Petrolino. He is a diehard New Jersey guy, and he's not going. I've talked to him myself. I'm like, dude, we need to move. like, how do we get out of Massachusetts and New Jersey and go to Tennessee? And he's like, we're not, man. And people have families and they grow roots there, and I believe me, I get that. But somebody's got to stay and fight that fight, because if we don't, then the red states start to become purple, as we've seen around the country.
Yeah, the biggest thing I saw from the Senate hearing last week with Diana Mueller is you guys have to protect Texas. Like I saw one of your representatives there at the hearing that I think she's from the San Antonio area. You've got to get her gone. Like, you guys have to protect that house. There should be a sense of urgency there.
We're in pretty good shape. A lot better, I contend, than people let on. In fact, I've got a 20-minute video that I put out. Took about a week's worth of research and parsing numbers and data, talking about where are people moving from coming into Texas, where are they moving to once they come into Texas, with those districts, what's the blue and the red makeup, how has those seats shifted over the last 2 decades, looking at percentages of victory, red versus blue, right, in past elections, recent elections, things like that, and breaking it down. Texas is unique, and a lot of people, they go, oh, well, Texas is going to turn blue. Look at Virginia. Look at Georgia. Texas is neither of those. And I'm not sitting here pounding my fist, yay, Texas, or whatever. But the makeup of Texas, as far as the districts, as far as the representation and all that, because we have such a large landmass, is different. Other states don't have that benefit. And then, we get a large influx of people, but they're going to Midland and Odessa for the oil fields, for example. Those people are typically red, Republican, conservative leaning. I don't like to get into the whole political boxes and all that kind of thing, but that's typically where they kind of come down, is in that area, right? The folks that move into Austin, the folks that move into Dallas or Houston, into already blue districts, are coming in, and they're blue, but they're coming into a blue district. So at the end of the day, that doesn't affect the state legislature. But people will see Beto O'Rourke get really close to beating a then fairly weak Ted Cruz, and think that one race is an indicator that Texas is going to turn blue, right? Okay. And it's like, there's way more to it than that. Once you get down to it and start parsing through the data.
So, Chris, let me ask this: is it, in my opinion, it's not coincidental that the stronger that Ted Cruz stands behind Second Amendment policy, the more popular and the stronger he gets?
The longer he keeps the beard, I'm convinced it's the beard of power for Ted Cruz.
It's the right.
Seriously, I don't know what it is about the beard, but he was this weaselly little dude, and I still think all politicians are slimy and weaselly. Let's be honest, for the most part. So do I trust him 100%? Absolutely not, right? But he's gained in popularity with the beard. I mean, you can see it. There's no doubt about it. So it's a weird phenomenon. But some of his positions and stances and the way that he articulates things have changed with the beard too, right? So that's a weird dynamic. But I think he's in a much stronger position now. Should the same type of race come about, I think he's in a much stronger position now, and I think Beto doesn't get nearly as close as he did before. On the topic of Beto, there's rumblings that he may run for governor, and honestly, I don't think he's got a prayer. I think he expended a lot of political capital with his presidential run, quite honestly, and so because of that, I don't think he stands a chance. Now, does that mean that we don't need to stay vigilant about making sure we get the vote out and get the word out and everything else? Should he run? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we sit back and just let him run it into the end zone. But I think he's going to have a tough time with it. I really do.
All right, John Petrolino reminds us that Sheila Jackson Lee and Beto both are from Texas. And Gerald's brought up a comment that I think is going to make us change lanes here a little bit. At least I'm going to change lanes based on Gerald's comment. He says, I've considered retreating to Idaho, but they're turning Democrat. Besides, they do not have a coast. Gerald, about 5 counties are trying to do what you are considering doing. This week, 5 counties voted to leave Oregon and go to Idaho. Now, there's a whole lot that has to happen, including Oregon legislature agreeing, Idaho legislature agreeing, and the U.S. Congress agreeing. None of which are certain to happen, all of which are fairly doubtful to happen. But, yeah.
Do you guys have a tough time filling out an application that says, "Have you ever denounced your citizenship from your country?" And you're like, there's been a few times when I've wanted to secede from the Union myself.
No, I'm not Hunter Biden. I'd probably get prosecuted. So.
Well, speaking of Hunter Biden, let's talk about a little story about him. The Freedom of Information Act that somebody was pursuing for 6 months. They shut it down, and they said it gets into his private and personal business, and they will not put this information out. And it doesn't look good for the Bidens that they can do this sort of stuff. I know Paul's playing the violin there. I feel sorry for him.
Well, I saw Chipman take some really tough questioning on that topic today. I don't know where the senator was from, but he had some really great questions for the way he was going to apply that rule and that rule of law. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, the Obama presidency talked about transparency, but I think the only thing that's really transparent with Joe Biden is when you look from one ear right through the other. Plenty of transparency there.
There is, yes.
So Chipman is another topic that we could probably go on for a while. I don't know if you guys, I did see some videos of him being asked by a couple different the people that were grilling him, asked him what a definition of what the definition of an assault weapon was, and he couldn't give them a definition of an assault weapon. And what it reminded me of is from the 1960s, the Republicans' definition of pornography, which is, I know pornography when I see it. So it's one of these things that, like in Washington State, a Ruger 1022 is considered an assault weapon, and there's a $25 tax on top of one of those when you buy it. So if this guy knows an assault weapon when he sees one, because he doesn't know what the definition of it is, if he sees a 1022, no one's going to call it an assault weapon unless you jack it up and it looks like you're shooting ISIS squirrels. Then it's just a 1022, and this guy doesn't have a definition, and everyone's really sticking it to him for it, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, one thing that struck me about Chipman, I don't know if anybody else got this or not, he reminds me of the younger Gary Busey from Under Siege. Anybody else? It's like, what's Gary Busey doing in front of Congress? What's going on here? I couldn't get over that. But.
Is it the post Gary Busey after the accident, or is it the
Well, that's debatable.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. He's a super slimy individual. I didn't pick up on much of it today. I was busy with a lot of different things. But one of the times, Ted Cruz, which interesting, we spoke about him earlier. He was in a back and forth and Cruz just flat destroyed him. And some other. I can't even think. It was a lady that was up there, and I can't think of her name. But obviously, she was a Republican because she was giving him fits too. And she did not give him any room to work. It was amazing the questions she asked and the way she pointed them, and she didn't give him a chance because they get in front of the hearings like that, and they say what the senators want them to say. And then they lay out their qualifiers, right? And she would not let him lay out any qualifiers on what, after he said what he said. It was like the people that say, I support the Second Amendment, but yada, 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 yada.
Yep.
And she cut him off every time at that but, and he never got an opportunity to, he sounded like a fool. And I loved it.
Well, it just showed how unqualified he is for that position. He's partisan. obviously he's a gun grabber from a long ways back. He's taken money from every town, and he's a shill. And there's no reason for him to be in that position of power, because he's going to weaponize the ATF against us law-abiding gun owners. It's a bad deal for Americans.
And Derek, I want to I recognize when you say law-abiding gun owners, and I respect that, but I've gone away from using law-abiding gun owners recently. I've gone to responsible gun owners, simply because there's going to be if they go the way they want to go, and if Chipman gets in and they outlaw AR-15s, I go from being a law-abiding gun owner to a responsible gun owner.
Right.
Yeah, I respect that. And part of me on my thought process is, anybody seen Super Troopers? It's a great movie, right? Where
the guys
they're pulled over on the side of the road, right? And the cops are asking them to pull over, and they say, they can't pull over any further. That's kind of the way I feel when it comes to gun rights right now. Is like, I can't be any more law abiding, right? And so what they're trying to subject us to is really unreasonable. And it's a full-on attack on our constitutionally protected rights that have been supported time and time again by the Supreme Court, and we need to just tie it up in court again and get another victory there.
And my own opinion is that is where we're going to win, is in the courts.
Okay. Yep. For sure.
We're going to. I keep going back to this, and I'm sorry if y'all have heard this before, but when I was asked to speak, do the MC duties down in Florida for the Florida Carry event, and they asked me, okay, what do you do for a living? Well, I work for the S.A.F. What does the S.A.F. do? Well, when states or counties step out of line, we sue their pants off. And that is how we are going to be getting our rights back. Is it going to be by, do we want to elect people that get our rights back? Yes, we do. Do we want to defend our rights and keep our rights from getting given away by our electorate? Yes. How are we going to get our rights back? We're going to get our rights back in the Supreme Court and in the court system down the road. There's not going to be you are not going to be able to elect people that'll say, okay, we're going to rescind the Lawful Protection of Commerce and Arms Act provision that allows people to buy fully automatic machine guns again. That'll never come about. You'll never be able to get a majority of the Senate and a majority of the House and a president that'll sign it. Now, can we get the Supreme Court to say that's illegal? You bet your butt we can. But it's going to have to go through the courts. I don't think in our lifetimes we're going to get a Congress that'll rescind that law.
But I think there's more to that as well, Paul. I mean, I would agree with you, and I think that the fight in the courts, maybe that's the fuel in the tank of the car that gets us to, ultimate 2A freedom. It's definitely a huge component to it. But the more that the proponents of gun control, the more that we whittle away at things that they have enacted, the less likely they are to attempt those again. The other thing is those wins, along with all of the wins in the states and different things you mentioned earlier, people want to play for a winning team, right? I mean, who wants to get traded to the last team in the league? Nobody, right? They want to get traded to the championship team. We need to relish the wins. I think Derek talked about it down there earlier. We need to relish the wins. We need to look like a winning team. We need to act like a winning team. And we need to pull people in that want to be winners and contribute to the cause. And part of the contribution to the cause is keeping these politicians in check by pointing out, if you do this, right, it's not going to hold up in court. You're wasting your time that you could be getting some kickback money for your district on some BS bill. Mm-hmm. You're wasting your time on this, right? You're going to get kicked out of office come next re-election and not have the power and the position that you so dearly love. The ramifications of you doing this already been proven in court. And like I said, that emboldens us as a team, right? that gives us those past victories, just like great championship teams that three-peat and quad-peat and whatever, right? That gives us that history to fall back on and go, look, we've done it, and this is what's going to happen to you if you don't get in line.
I want to get in a couple social media comments if I could. Bring this in. There we go. They have drawn too many lines in the sand in Oregon. A person can become a criminal way too easy. And Gerald also says border states are in danger more than ever with current policies. Let's see here. Let me see. And where I've seen one more.
So, and about Gerald's comment, it comes down in here in Oregon where, what can be enforced. Right now in the state of Oregon, it's legal for me to possess a certain amount of methamphetamine and heroin. And in certain aspects, I'm actually probably better off being caught with heroin over a 9mm handgun, which is unfortunate once this Senate Bill 554 goes into effect. And so it does nothing to protect society. Every representative that I spoke with on, I spent probably over 100 hours, kind of negotiating, trying to kill this bill. They said there was so much fear. Everybody was contacting them, was afraid of guns and people that carry guns on a daily basis. So they use full out emotions to further restrict our rights, which isn't right. And I told them very specifically that we are going to identify weak candidates and we're going to come next election and we're going to take seats. And I believe that's why that Senate bill hasn't been signed by the governor right now, because I think they're polling right now. They're trying to figure out, is this politically smart for them to sign into law? Because there's a lot of people this affected, and it affected more than they expected, because it's just a huge overreach.
A lot of it is, and I know you posted some stuff about on Facebook and social media about the storage laws, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. We have storage laws in Massachusetts. The only way that you get in trouble for it is if the police end up in your house and they start looking around your house for some reason. Other than that, they're going to have to break the Fourth Amendment and do an illegal search and seizure to see how you keep your firearms locked up. Once they do that, or once they come out and say, hey, listen, these are the only acceptable methods to keep a firearm locked up, that's going to be more of a financial burden to get yourself a big Liberty case or Liberty safe, or all of that sort of stuff. Or if you have to have insurance to cover your tail if somebody steals one of your firearms and goes and commits a crime. And Derek and I talked about this in the fall. It's a term that I've coined that I'm calling it the gun control loophole, where they say, oh yeah, we're not going to take your guns, but you have to keep them stored this way. You can only have, limited capacity magazines. You can only buy a certain amount of ammunition. You can only buy one gun a month. You have to have this sort of a safe. You have to have this insurance. You have to have this training. You have to have this. It's going to cost this much. And the gun control loophole is all of that stuff. It's them saying, oh, you can have a gun, but you can't have anything else that goes with it.
Well, there's an easy solution to all of that, right? It's sell all your guns, and then you don't have that problem. Which is, I think, that's the ultimate goal, correct?
Right.
Well, and Charlie, you live in Massachusetts, Charlie. Yeah. How does that magazine capacity that you live outside of Boston? That cured all the crime problem in Boston, didn't it?
Sure.
Charlie is the crime in Boston. What are you talking about?
Yeah, when I go into my job, I say I am a breach of security. We all know that magazine restrictions doesn't do anything except for when I go to free states and people are like, hey, we've got a 15-round magazine. I feel like Charlie Brown on the Halloween special where he's like, I got a rock. Like, I've got a 10-rounder.
Yep.
All I can have is a 10-rounder.
Wow.
And
I have such magazine envy.
The secure storage here in Oregon is the legislature actually put the Oregon Health Authority in charge of deciding what's appropriate for us to secure our guns. Okay, and the Oregon Health Authority is they basically control, all the medical parts in our state, and they're not qualified to make any kind of decision on this matter. So we're basically turning all of our rights over to a bureaucracy. and it makes all of us vulnerable. It is basically a tax. And basically the way it looks is it's $500 per gun that's not compliant with their specs. And if somebody were to steal my gun and use it in the commission of a crime, I could be held liable for up to 2 years. So it does nothing. It's not going to save kids. I work with kids. I know how to save kids. This will not save kids. And that's why I've been very vocal against it from the beginning. And I'm not going to support it. And because education is going to get us further than this garbage. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it is infringement in that they're telling you what you want to do to make them happy. And I've told so many people this. I said, yeah, exactly. I can't make myself happy. I am definitely not making anyone else happy.
So Derek makes a great point, and I mean I share that with the education thing. Bringing it back around a little bit to the Texas constitutional carry, a lot of the argument, especially you heard in the Senate hearings, was no training. Oh, this is going to allow anybody to have a firearm with no training. There was some great speakers that come into that hearing that talked about, well, if training is your thing, that people don't have training and they don't know firearm safety, why don't you teach it in school? Why don't you get it before they ever become old enough to even be a firearm owner and take part in constitutional carry? Why don't you train them on that? Not only is that going to keep kids safe, but then that will make them, as Paul brought up, a responsible firearm owner in the future. Hopefully, anybody can be an idiot and go rogue, I guess. But hopefully, those lessons stick with them. And what's interesting about, we talk about moving that ball forward. I'm a big proponent of that ground game. Smash mouth, 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. If we get the Hail Mary, fine, but smash mouth, that's how we do this. We gain that ground back slowly, and we drive it in. That's where I see, honestly, people say, okay, now that Texas has constitutional carry, well, first of all, no bill's perfect. We're going to have to iron this out in future sessions, all kinds of little kinks. There's no doubt about that. But where did we move the ball forward? And I said, you know what? All the anti-gunners that come in and talk about the training aspect, I think the next move Texas should make is to push firearm trainings in schools. If that was a huge issue you had because of constitutional carry, and now constitutional carry is the law of the land in Texas, then let's address your concern, Mr. and Mrs. Anti-Gunner, who wants education and training.
Absolutely.
Let's address that.
We know
Great
just the guy that can do that
Cobalt
too.
Flame over on YouTube. You don't need training to vote.
Boom.
This is true.
Hell, you don't even need an ID to vote.
Unfortunately, right?
That's probably more dangerous than my guns sometimes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
My guns are never going to hurt someone.
I know he's polarizing, but I love it when Ted Nugent says, if guns kill people, all mine are broken.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to go back to the training thing, and we've got about 15 minutes left here. We're going to spend just a couple of those 15 minutes. I want to plug something, and Charlie's coming out to South Dakota next week to do something. Charlie, what is that?
I am coming out to hang out with a lot of the cool Second Amendment folks, and I am taking the MAG 40 class with Massad Ayoob. 4 days, 10 hours a day, 20 hours on the range, 20 hours in a book. I am nervous as all get out. I'm nervous for my shooting. I'm nervous for how well I do not take tests or how well I do not read and retain. And I am scared to death, but I can't wait to be out in South Dakota in a week in Sioux Falls taking the class with Mag 40 and all the cool people. And I believe there are a couple of seats left.
There are.
All right. So if you are interested in hanging out with me and Paul Lathrop and Robin Sandoval from A Girl and a Gun and Amanda Suffolcool from
Yes.
Eye on the Target Training, Eye on the Target Radio, and Tracy Becker from Texas, who's also from the Masada U group, and Charlie Chambers, who is a frequent commenter, who's obviously not here tonight because we haven't heard from him. Gosh, who else is going to be there? Rob Beckman from the Firearm Trainers podcast is going to be there. It's going to be legit. Besides Paul and Susan, it's going to be all of the cool kids taking a MAG 40 class with Massad Ayoob himself.
Neil Widener from Active Self Protection is going to be there. So,
cool. Nice. He's a local guy to you.
Yes. If you want to come, email Susan at politicsandguns.com. And she'll get you all the information, get you registered, and we'll get you everything you need to get up here. The class starts 1 week from tomorrow. So tomorrow, 1 week from today, there will not be an Armed Society podcast. Charlie and I and a lot of the people that are going to this class are going to be going out to dinner. And so 1 week from today, there will not be an Armed Society because we're going to be all getting ready to do this class. But if you're interested, Susan at politicsandguns.com. DJ Play Nice says, scholarship me. Dude, I would, but I only get so many scholarships, and Charlie got one of them. So you got to talk to Charlie about that. So
Arm wrestle.
Right.
That could get interesting. I think DJ is a musician too, isn't he? So that could get interesting. We could have some
DJ.
Guitar Hero or something, trumpet hero going on. I don't know.
I am thinking of bringing up my trumpet. I had this crazy idea, not just to take riding shotgun across the country, but to film me playing the Star Spangled Banner in Amber. Oh my God, I'm going to screw it up, aren't I?
Go.
Amber Waves of Grain, yes. Playing it around the country, making a video of that, which I think would be kind of cool.
That'd be friggin' awesome. Now we just need to find the different. We need to find different plates. Yeah, different AR-500
plates. Oh, absolutely.
That have the different tunes when you strike them. You know, so that you don't have exactly. So there we go.
Pitched plates. There are a couple companies that do that, and one of my crazy riding shotgun goals is to get out to San Francisco and to interview Chris Chang, and he's a musician and he plays the pitched plates, and to do a duet with Chris. So that'll be kind of fun.
That'd be awesome. That'd be friggin' awesome. All right, so we got what? We got about 10 minutes left.
So back to the training in Texas. It seems a little crazy to me. I know when all of this came out, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, there were a bunch of instructors that came out and said that they were not for constitutional carry. And I get that it's going to cut into your income. I absolutely do. But it's not about your income. It's about free America is what it's about. And it's, people are still going to need to be trained. It's not all of these people that are just going to get a gun and start carrying it around with not having any idea how to use it. Hopefully the people that are going to be buying guns that haven't yet are going to want to take some training to learn how to do all of this. Because honestly, I'm sure you guys know this too. When you're an instructor and you start to tell people, say, oh, listen, you know what? I wouldn't shoot someone because they dinged my car in the parking lot or pushed a shopping cart over there. And I'm 51 years old. I've never been in a fight on the side of the road where I've never been on the fight on the side of a road, and I'm not going to pull a gun out and get myself in that situation again. I mean, this is not why people have guns. And I've told a couple of my non-gun buddies, I said, listen, if you're going to shoot people in the parking lot because they park too close to you, you're not smart enough to own a gun, buddy.
So interesting you bring that up. First of all, there was some inaccuracies in the reporting on that threw some instructors under the bus. That was extremely unfair. Those instructors had no idea. They were never even contacted, but yet their organizations were mentioned in some of that. That being said, you're not wrong. During the Senate hearing, there were many an instructor that stepped up and testified and said, oh, this is bad because, people need to be trained, right? What is interesting that I found, if you watch that, it's mostly not picking on older guys, right? But it's older crotchety guys that were saying that. So here is a theory I've got on it. I've got a theory that, yes, it affects their pocketbook. Why? Because they're lazy. Because the younger guys realize that this is an opportunity, okay? Just because you have constitutional carry doesn't mean people are not going to seek out training and instruction. I prefer the word instruction over training, quite honestly. But it doesn't mean that people aren't going to seek out that instruction. You do that. If you get a piano you're going to learn how to play it correctly, right? Same way
Hopefully.
with purchasing a firearm. Hopefully, the same way as the panel. Hopefully, it doesn't sit in the corner and you just bang on it every now and then. What's the point in that? So there's an opportunity. The best part, really the only worthwhile part, quite honestly, with our license to carry program is the legalese portion of the program, because it doesn't really cover firearm safety. It doesn't really cover the different actions. It doesn't really cover, the shooting portion is a joke, pretty much. But the legalese you get right behind the laws behind license to carry are interesting. So there's an opportunity for instructors to pivot and offer a constitutional carry course. The young bucks, or the people just, not succumb with laziness so much that they're not willing to do that, to pivot to offer a constitutional carry course that not only gives people some hands-on safety and instruction, but also covers the legalese with constitutional carry, which is not the same as license to carry. Very, very similar in nature, but not the same. So there's a lot of movement there I think for the instructors willing to pivot, and potentially, because there's no licensing requirement and hoops you have to jump through, potentially fill up more people in those classes than they did with license to carry. It's just my thoughts on it.
I've been very open about this. About a month ago, I had a stroke, and I'm still dealing with it. And and then about 2 weeks after that, I had some cardiac issues, and I'm still dealing with those a little bit. Where I'm going with this is I've had a lot of contact with medical people over the last month of my life. On a daily basis, I've had contact with medical people, and a wide variety of them. And none of them have I hidden what I do for a living. I quite honestly say that I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. And more times than not, that brings up a discussion about guns. And quite often, it will, and matter of fact, the young lady I'm going to see tomorrow, who is my occupational therapist, who's going to reteach me how to use my left hand to type correctly, annoying as hell. My left hand doesn't do what I tell it to do anymore. But she asked me when it came up, where can I go to learn how to shoot better here in Sioux Falls? And when she asked me that, I was a little taken aback. I said, well, thank you, first of all, for not judging me when I told you what I do. I said, but are you going to be the person I'm seeing every week for occupational therapy? She said, yes. And I said, well, get back to me next week. I want to ask some friends if they have open classes. So, I've
got just the class for her.
There you go.
She should jump right in the deep end.
Well,
give her a revolver too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, now we got Chris back. We lost his video for a second, but now we got it.
I don't know what happened. I told Charlie when he called me today and talked about coming on here, I'm like, I've had some issues. I use a cell phone with an old cell phone with an out for my camera. And it's like, I've had some issues with that lately. Hopefully I can get it working. So it almost made it. Almost. So that's good.
53 minutes is a good record, man.
Right.
All right. So we should be able to go to 1 hour and 52 something, 1 hour 42 something.
Right.
Fortunately, we only have another 7 to go, but.
All right. So the last thing I've got is to talk real quick about this mass shooting that happened in San Jose, I believe. I think it was San Jose.
Yep. San Jose.
At the
a mass murder that just so happened to have been perpetrated with a firearm. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
In a gun-free zone.
In a gun-free zone in a state where it's already hard to get a gun, to get a license, and to have all of this stuff. It sounds to me like it was.
Got to be fake news, Charlie. It's got to be fake news, Charlie. It's got to be.
Well, I did think I did see it on one of the main media outlets, so there's a real good chance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a joke.
I mean, of course, just taking a look at it, reading the story about it, it sounded like a disgruntled employee, a 57-year-old white guy. That I think the picture I saw of him, he was mostly balding. Don't take any offense, Paul. it sounded like he was a grumpy old man that ran out of life choices, and he was probably losing his job, and all of this crap gets to him. So he goes in and decides to shoot it up at work. Not that it's an acceptable activity, of course, but it's not. It sounds like he kept to himself, and I don't want to say it's prime for someone. It's stereotyping someone to be that way, but I hate calling it a mass shooting. I'm going to have to go with what one of our former presidents said, where it's a workplace violence.
There you go. I like that. Flip it around on them.
I mean,
That's
more
exactly
effectively, it's a mass killing, and unfortunately, there was a lot of people that lost their lives. There was many laws that were in place that were violated today.
Murder is not the least of them. Exactly.
Yeah. That would be the major of the crimes committed, and it's just unfortunate because they've already rallied support, and it seems like there's this huge machine that pumps out information whenever something like this happens, and blows it up exponentially to drown us out as because we're the ones over here with the solutions, right? And we have solutions because we have experience. We carry a gun on a daily basis, so we know what we go through. We're training or instructing one another, and so that's kind of the unfortunate thing is the families don't even have time to grieve, and the memories have already been kind of used for a nefarious purpose, and that's to further disarm Americans.
Well, and they glorify the perpetrator with the face plastered everywhere and the name and we've got to stop doing that, mainstream media.
Yes.
You've got to, and I know why you do it. Just because drama and emotion and strife and that sells. I get it, but you've got to stop doing that. You've got to.
Well, and we should be talking about regulating the media and social media the way we do firearms, right? Just because
there you go.
Just because they have the First Amendment right to use their platform to spout hate doesn't mean they shouldn't be checked somehow.
Doesn't that First Amendment only apply to quill pens and
yes,
and town squares? Yeah.
Cobalt Flame has a great point. I worry the coming recession, and believe me, there's going to be one, is going to increase these tragedies.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
Yeah, and that's where it's really important to point out organizations like Walk the Talk America, HoldMyGuns.org.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health, is the same as physical health. Paul, you talked about your health issues and going to a doctor. Mental health is no different. There doesn't need to be a stigma attached to that. We all go through difficulties in our life. That's just part of being human. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. But when you have red flag laws in place, when you have all these stigmas, and you're a firearm owner and you're going through something tough, you're not going to seek help if you fear that it's going to backlash on you. And your whole life you've been a firearm collector and a gun lover and competition shooter and instructor and whatever, and your life is going to fall apart even worse than it is because of the mental issues you're having if you come forward to get help. And we've got to eliminate that. Those two organizations in particular, among many, there's several others out there doing great work. And I think that this particular tragedy sort of highlights the importance of something like that. The guy was obviously disturbed in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Could he have been saved? I think is a question that we have to ask sometimes with these types of things.
Amen. Well, hey guys, we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I'm just going to call it a good night. Charlie, you're driving the bus tonight. I'll let you put it to bed.
All right. Well, Paul, I want to thank you very much for running the show. You said you weren't going to stick around, and you never left. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you, Chris and Clovertac, and thank you, Derek. It's great to see you guys. It's always an education to hang out with these people on our digital campfires. And Clover, how can people find you?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't have left if I was Paul either and leave you alone to run this. There's no way I would have
It's not like he's going someplace. He's still here.
Yeah, right. But anyway, clovertac.com, as I mentioned at the top, just in case somebody came in late, I'll say it again, clovertac.com. Pick your poison, social media, YouTube, wherever you want to follow, whatever content, whatever is your fancy, and especially if you're in Texas or if you're trying to keep up with constitutional carry and what's going on, the coverage with all that still continues. So it's been fun. I appreciate being on the panel with all you gentlemen.
Thank you, man. Derek, where can everyone find KidSafe Foundation?
So you can find us on our website, kidsafefoundation.org. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Which is a lot of fun. Yes, the TikTok until they shadow ban me, which isn't fun. But you can find us all there.
All right, very cool. You can find all of my stuff at Riding Shotgun with Charlie. If you search Riding Shotgun with Charlie, I've got a YouTube, I've got an Instagram. That is Break Out the Trombone. That's right, we might have to do that. Check out Riding Shotgun with Charlie. What these guys are all referring to are the gun grams. It's where I play the trumpet and shoot a gun at the same time. I've got a couple that I need to make before I head out to South Dakota. And if you are around next week, please come out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to take a MAG 40 class with Massad Ayub himself. I think that's what we should just call him, Massad Ayub himself. And Susan at Politics and right, the real Massad Ayub. Susan at politicsandguns.com is where you can get all of that. And thank you guys so much. This is always great. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the Armed Society. And we'll see you after MAG 40.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, we are clear of the streams.
All right. That was fun, man.
Well, as long as we don't cross the streams, it's all good.
Yeah, never cross the stream.